Do you feel like no matter how much you eat, even if you are full to the brim with food, you never feel satisfied? If so, you might be experiencing extreme hunger. I'm going to explain what extreme hunger is, why it happens, and how you can deal with it. And I'm also going to share my experience with extreme hunger. What is extreme hunger? Extreme hunger is something that happens when we've come from a place of heavy restriction, dieting, an eating disorder history, and you start honoring your hunger signals again. And you realize that you do not have normal hunger signals anymore. You might feel constantly hungry. You might eat and eat and eat. And even though you fill your stomach with food, mentally you never ever feel like you've satisfied your appetite. And this can last for a really long period of time and can cause a lot of distress. Why does extreme hunger happen? Our bodies don't want us to starve and they don't want us to lose weight. So when we restrict ourselves, our biology is going to kick in and it wants to protect us. Your metabolism will go down, so you will be expending less calories, and your hunger signals are going to go up because your body wants to store calories. It wants to put on fat storage to protect you from future starvation. If you have restricted your calories or lost weight, you have racked up this huge caloric debt that you owe to your body. And there is no way out of that debt but by paying your debt with re-eating all of those calories that you missed out on. I mean, you might have 50,000 calories to make up for. So you are not going to be satisfied with like 2,000 calories a day. I don't want to put a number on how many calories are going to be right for your body, but it could be 3, 4, 5, 6,000 calories a day. So my advice would be don't count calories, just make weight gain and eating with abundance your goal. So how long does extreme hunger last for? Well, a lot of that depends on how long you've been restricting yourself and how big that calorie debt is. It's going to look different for every single person. You might be a normal weight, but if you have restricted yourself at all, you can expect to be experiencing extreme hunger, and I would continue honoring that. But do not be discouraged if you feel like you've had extreme hunger for a long time and it doesn't seem like it's going away. I promise it will go away. So if you experience extreme hunger, you might find that you are really uncomfortable. Maybe you're constantly full, your stomach hurts, you might be getting acid reflux, heartburn, you might feel like your digestion is a wreck, and it's just really uncomfortable. Here are some tips for preventing that uncomfortable feeling. Number one is try to eat very, very calorie dense foods. Small volume calorie dense foods. This will prevent some of that bloating. Don't be choosing the salad or the smoothie because if you know you're still going to be hungry, that's just going to add to that bloat and that uncomfortable feeling. If you decrease the amount of calories you're spending, that's going to decrease that calorie debt that you need to catch up to. Try not to fight your appetite. If you know you have this extreme hunger, don't try and stuff it down. Don't try and keep yourself from indulging in your appetite by filling up on water or filling up on fiber. Anything you do to push your appetite down, it's just going to come back harder and stronger. Now I want to talk about my experience with extreme hunger. And I'm going to tell a few stories that hopefully will normalize everything that you are experiencing. When I was in the depths of anorexia, I really didn't have much of an appetite because I wasn't eating enough to keep my digestion going, so my stomach wasn't growling. I really didn't feel hungry. I didn't feel those hunger pains. And mentally, I had told myself food is completely off limits. So I had just gotten used to running off of very, very few calories. But over time, I felt my appetite coming back. And what that looked like for me was becoming really preoccupied with food. I would spend hours a day watching cooking shows and looking at recipes. At the time, I was in high school and I had a health class and we were talking about basic nutrition. And I remember staring at the pictures of bread and whole grains and just longing for those foods. But I didn't tell myself, oh, I'm really hungry. I told myself, I'm fine, I'm not hungry. I just enjoy looking at food and thinking about food. But that was my hunger signals already ramping up. I reached a point where it was really, really hard for me to deny my appetite. So I would occasionally let myself indulge in some of my fear foods. And these foods were kind of strange because I still didn't want to fully give in to my true cravings. I didn't want to eat bread and pasta like I was craving. So I would do things like, maybe I can have some carbohydrates in the form of ketchup and I'll just start putting ketchup on broccoli. Well, once my body got the sugar and the carbs it was craving in the form of ketchup, that just like triggered my appetite. My appetite just like, boom, turned on, and it was like a snap of the fingers and I was going crazy. I have eaten an entire bottle of ketchup. I have eaten an entire jar of strawberry jelly. I have eaten an entire box of cereal with a whole bag of powdered sugar poured on top. All of this was crazy to me. I felt so out of control. What is wrong with me? Why am I doing this? I was so good on my diet for so long. Why am I suddenly freaking out? Why am I suddenly eating all of this? And it would happen in the blink of an eye. I remember one time my sister was in the living room watching a movie and I was in the kitchen and I was trying to hide my eating and my hunger, but I couldn't deny it. So I spent the entire movie, the 2.5 hour long movie, I spent that entire time eating, but I had felt like I had eaten nothing. My hunger was insane. I was ravenous and I would feel so stuffed full with food, but I would still be starving. Even though I never felt full, I never felt satisfied, I was watching the scale go up and up and up, and I was really scared. I couldn't wrap my head around how I could be gaining weight even though I was hungry. I was still so hungry. How could I be gaining weight? Well, it was my body protecting me, rebelling against all of the damage, all of the starvation I had put myself through. So here's another story, very TMI, but I want to really, really paint the picture of just how intense my extreme hunger was. So one time I was just going crazy in the kitchen, eating, and I was like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. But I was like, no, I can't leave this food behind. I can't stop eating, I can't. It really felt like something terrible would happen to me if I stopped eating. So I literally took what I was eating into the bathroom with me, which sounds so gross and maybe really crazy, but it was because I was so hungry. I was starving and I just needed food pretty much all the time. But I fell into the trap of trying to push down my appetite and get rid of my extreme hunger and regain control over my diet. So I started doing things like fasting between meals. I would tell myself, oh, I'm still so bloated. Even though it's been hours, I'm still so bloated. I don't need food right now. The answer was I did need food. But I told myself there's no way I could be hungry after everything I just ate. I'm gonna wait. And I think that did so much damage to my appetite. And I think that's why it took me, 3 years to overcome my extreme hunger, because I was fighting that process the entire time. So at that point, I think my anorexia had turned into bulimia, but instead of purging, I was fasting and I was exercising to try and get rid of the extra calories I had eaten from my extreme hunger. I felt out of control and I was so shameful. I was hiding my behavior. I felt like no one could possibly understand what I'm going through. I'm a freak. There's something wrong with me. Nobody else eats like this. And eventually, I think I had gained enough weight that my appetite slowly started coming down to a regular point. And I got to the point where I had started eating in my fasting windows that I had created for myself. I was very used to eating in the morning and then skipping lunch and dinner and then eating the next morning. But once I started including some food around lunchtime, around dinner time, before I went to bed, once I started doing that, I found that I was craving less food in the morning. It wasn't that I was making myself eat less. I was really less hungry. I was really getting satisfied on less calories. I was getting mentally satisfied on less food. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. Maybe this is what I should have been doing all along. Yes, that is exactly what I should have been doing all along. But as I continued through that process, my appetite just completely regulated. I was eating less and less in the morning, more and more in the evening. And then all of a sudden, I was able to eat 3 normal meals a day. I was able to eat, whenever I wanted. I was able to snack. I was able to, be satisfied off of just a normal portion of dinner. And it is the most freeing feeling to be free of that extreme hunger. So if you're dealing with this, continue to eat, continue to gain weight. I know it's scary. I know our eating disorder voices are telling us you can't gain weight. You're too big, you're too fat, but you aren't. And your body needs and deserves fuel. It needs food. And the sooner that you can accept that, the faster this horrible, uncomfortable, extreme hunger process will go. So if you want to know more about eating disorder recovery and my experience, please subscribe and join the community that I am trying to create here.